My dear brothers and sisters, welcome to Lent. We begin this holy season by receiving ashes on our foreheads. The season of Lent lasts 40 days, plus Sundays in imitation of the time Jesus spent in the desert before inaugurating his public ministry. Christians have never felt that it was appropriate to fast on Sundays, because these 7.5 weeks always fall in the spring. English Christians began to call this season Lent, since Lent was an Old English word meaning spring. Lent prepares us for the great celebration of Holy Week that begins with Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem, where he celebrated his Last Supper before his passion, death, and resurrection. But what do we do during these 40 days? During Lent, we undertake some practices that intensity our desire, our longing for God. Jesus spoke about them in today's Gospel: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. They are sometimes called the penitential practices. As Christians, each one of us needs salvation. Salvation is an eternal relationship with God. To use a human comparison, if you desire friendship, that is, a relationship with another human being, you have to do things together, be in each other's presence, talk and listen. The same applies in our friendship with God. It will not happen automatically. The most important is what you are doing now, participating in the Mass. It is the greatest prayer because it renews the sacrifice which opens heaven to us. Flowing from the Mass are other ways of praying, like we have Bible reading, the Rosary, and our personal prayer. Prayer is the foundation of the Christian. Through prayer, we communicate with God, and God communicates with us. It is also a wonderful time for self-examination, confession of our sin, and expressing our contrition and brokenness to God. After prayer comes fasting. This is tricky for us today. Our culture has so much guilt around food that I am afraid of adding to that guilt, making you feel bad about eating. We should certainly enjoy food and the company we eat with. Nevertheless, we also must find a place for fasting. Fasting reminds us of how we depend upon God, who graciously provides our food. Fasting sensitizes us to the need of millions of hungry people on our planet. Fasting gives us extra time to love others. Give up something you enjoy this Lent. Finally, we come to almsgiving. Lent is time to look at the things I spend my money on. Am I becoming a slave to materialism? Just buying stuff that I don't even use? How about what I spend on other things? Lent is also a great time to get rid of some of the culture in one's room and one's, with a little more organization. I could better serve the needy. Visiting a charitable institution and donating in cash or kind can be a great act. Organize a visit to a home for orphans or the elderly. Spend time with them, either as a family, as member of an SCC, and see how it can make a difference to your own perspective of life. In all this, we should hope to follow Jesus more closely. No time like the present to take a look again at our priorities in life, to focus more on what is rather than what is not, to keep striving to be our best selves as disciples of the one who calls us. Go beyond the usual practices and follow the Lord's call to Him, your all time, your talent and energy. Let us remember that we are dust, and to dust we shall return. Let us contemplate our mortality, our sin, and the gaping distance between who we are and who God intends us to be. And finally, let us draw near to our merciful God, who delights in forgiving the contrite and transforming them into His image.